In 1912, the town of Villisca, Iowa was shattered by one of the most brutal crimes in American history. 8 people, including 6 children, were murdered in their sleep inside what is now known as the Villisca Ax Murder House. The case was never solved. Over the years, the house has gained a dark reputation, drawing investigators from all over the world who report disturbing and sometimes dangerous encounters within its walls. In this video, you'll hear firsthand from 2 of those investigators, Mike from Charm City Paranormal and Ethan from Wolf Paranormal, who both experienced something they'll never forget. This is more than a ghost story. Their chilling experiences serve as a warning for anyone who dares to step inside the Villisca Ax Murder House.
I was originally going out to Iowa to do Edinburgh Manor because that's what I'd heard of first. I saw some videos online of people investigating it, and it looked like a really active place. So I brought it up to Ethan, and Ethan said, well, I mean, we're already going to be out in Iowa. Why don't we do the Axe House as well? And I said, sure.
I've heard about this place since I was 10 years old, maybe. I saw it on Travel Channel, Discovery, something like that. And my first thought was just how terrifying the events are. You know, I mean, 8 people murdered in their sleep with an axe, 6 of which were children. It's a true horror story, you know?
I started researching it, and once I realized what the case was, what had happened, and just how active and well known the place was, I definitely got nervous because we had never done anything to this scale prior.
So I've always been really intrigued with that place, and I saw, Ghost Adventures go there and do what they did, and it's always been a bucket list location for me. So finally getting to go there and experiencing it for myself, I wasn't prepared for it. I wasn't prepared for it at all.
It just seemed a lot more personal than the cases that we had done before. I mean, every case we do has a story. There are people involved, there are events, things like that, but it's always been on such a larger scale, like asylums and hospitals, for example. It's usually a large group of people, and this felt a lot more personal, with it being a family, young children, and it was gruesome. It was really violent and dark what had happened to these people. And we're used to doing hospitals and asylums, which is also fairly dark cases. I mean, it's a lot of neglect and mistreatment, but it's just something about thinking about somebody breaking into a home, patiently waiting for the family to get home, and sitting in the attic waiting for them just to axe them in the face in their sleep. It wasn't anything like we had done before, and I was nervous about the energy that was in there.
I'd been anticipating seeing this place in person for days, months at least, because Mike and I, Charm City, we went together, and we had been planning it. So I was just so excited to finally get there and just see it and experience it. And when we pulled up to it, it was like, oh God, like we're actually here. That's it. There it is right there. Like, wow. We drove 17 hours, almost maybe 20 hours to get there from Maryland. So it was just anticipation the whole ride there. And we were going to spend the night there, but we didn't. We left at 2:30 in the morning.
I was excited. It was a super long drive, so I was excited to get there. It really wasn't until we stepped inside of the home that I started to feel a little on edge. Pulling up to it, it was just like, wow, we're finally here. I can't believe that we're at this place. And then you walk in, and it's almost like a wave. It washes over you. It's a very heavy feeling. It doesn't feel comfortable.
Walking in, I've seen videos, seen pictures, and I'm like, wow, yeah, I'm actually here. This is it. This is the place I've seen my entire life. And we got the tour from Johnny, and I didn't feel all that much during the tour. You walk around, you see the axe marks in the walls, you see the beds and everything, and I'm taking it all in, but I didn't really feel too oppressed.
I mean, when he went into detail about it, that pit in my stomach definitely grew, because you can only read so much about it online. A lot of it is just a lot of cut and paste of the same story over and over, but Johnny is very dedicated to what he does there, and he's been the caretaker of that place for a long time. And I feel like he has a lot more insight to that location and like breaking down the crime scene, where the killer was when this happened or when that happened, how this room affects what happens in that room. I mean, he's so intricate about it all that it's almost like you're going back to that moment that it happened and almost watching it unfold. And again, it was just such a dark case, and I really empathized with the family and what had happened to them, especially it being small children. It's not every day that you hear about something like that happening. So I was just anxious pretty much the whole time that we were there, especially being given the tour.
It wasn't until Johnny left and Mike and I started investigating that things really took a turn. It's like once we were there by ourselves, it knew that it could affect us, without Johnny being there. So my first impressions walking in was more of just, I guess, starstruck. Like, wow, I'm actually here. This is the place. Wow. It was cool, but, still very disturbing to say the least.
We actually didn't start filming until about 9 p.m. We got there at 5:30. So most of the time was set up, like doing setup and getting the tour itself, went out to eat, came back. It wasn't until we started filming and actually interacting with whatever is there, that's when things started to happen. Because like during the tour, at least for me, I was just more or less transporting myself back to that night when I listened to Johnny explain the events. And that's really what evoked a lot of feelings of guilt and remorse for what had happened to him. But we hadn't actually acknowledged anything that was there yet. So none of those feelings came on until we decided to see who was there or what was there.
Well, see, I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know if the family was still there, if the kids were there, or if the killer was there, as they say. So going in, we were kind of blind, not knowing what to expect, because we had seen evidence of the killer being there as well as the family. So we were kind of trying to play both sides and see what kind of evidence we can capture in that aspect. But it all went really dark, really quick.
The story of the guy who investigated the house by himself and stabbed himself in the chest in the blue room, that's the first time I had ever heard of anything like that. So automatically I was super nervous going into that room. And the energy in there, it grows overnight. Like the longer you stay in there and the later it gets into the night and early morning hours. When you're in there during the day, it's kind of like, you're picturing what had happened. It's still a gruesome scene and it makes you think, but I feel like once the sun goes down and you're in there by yourself and there's not a familiar face like Johnny or whoever else is the caretaker there, it changes entirely. Now whatever is in there has a chance to observe you without any distractions from their usual people. And it's sort of, it's very systemic in a way that it messes with you in that house. Like Johnny was explaining to us, if you want to talk to the kids and you want to have a calm night and have them play with your devices, you can more or less bring that about and that'll happen. If you want to engage with the killer or whatever evil is supposedly here, you can get that as well. And we had heard accounts of people just having very calm nights or nothing happening there, but when we went there and we decided to more or less provoke very lightly just to see who was there, it definitely gave us one of those like really intense, scary nights. And it was mostly in the attic and the blue room.
So we started out in the kitchen with the REM pod and stuff like that, and nothing really was happening. We were hearing some knocks upstairs, so we decided to go upstairs and take the investigation up there. And Mike and I both started getting really affected mentally once we went into the kids' room upstairs. Mike started to feel a lot of anger towards the killer, the person who did it. And I was feeling extreme sadness for the family. Like I was almost in tears. And I don't usually get like that.
For me, I felt a lot of anger and a lot of frustration to what the killer did to that family. Ethan felt a lot of sadness and just sorrow for what had happened. And naturally, with that anger, I started kind of smack talking whoever was there and who murdered that family. And it kind of happened. Like, it wasn't something that I had in my mind, like, I'm gonna go in there and, talk smack to this guy and hopefully get something. It's just I started thinking about what had happened. And I also have nieces and nephews, and I just, for some reason, I kind of pictured them in that situation being such young kids, and it made me even more angry. So then I just naturally started provoking, and that's why we ended up getting the responses that we did.
It's really hard to put into words how that place makes you feel. It's almost feelings that aren't your own. It almost felt like I was feeling the feelings of the parents. Like, oh my God, all my kids just died. I couldn't do anything about it. That's kind of what I was feeling. And Mike he was getting really angry towards the killer. And he started to let it all out to the killer spirit. And I started to as well. And that's when things really started to go dark. Once you started to call it out, you've been there, you know what I mean. It's once you call that thing out, it really shows itself.
I've really never had any like altercations with Ethan. We usually get along pretty well. And there were times throughout the night that like he would drop something or run into something or just do something very minor that would warrant no reaction normally. And I would find myself getting mad at him or like trying to get away from him. And that was one of the first things that Johnny had mentioned to us was like, don't split up. Stay together as much as you can. It's going to try to split you guys up. It's going to do things to both of you that are going to want to make you separate. Don't do it.
It wants to break you apart, I think. It wants to separate you. It wants you to fight with each other.
And I had to catch myself a few times because I was like, I'm going to go outside, you stay in here, or you go outside and I'll stay in. You go up, I'll go down. And then I would catch myself like, wait a minute. Like, we're not supposed to do this. So yeah, it was trying to get us to fight.
I'm not one to play on the whole demon thing. I don't know if I believe in demons personally, but I've encountered a lot of evil spirits in my time as an investigator. And this is by far the most evil thing that I've ever encountered. If I had to say anything that I've encountered is a demon, it would be that. I don't want to call it a demon, but I would have to guess if it's anything, it's a demon. It knows things about you that it shouldn't know. It can get into your mind and it can pick apart what would upset you and it will spit it in your face. Like, for example, we were doing a spirit box session in the attic. And by this time, Mike and I were both pretty upset with the overall vibe of the house in general. And we were calling out the killer, calling him a coward. How could you do this? You're not a man. You're, so on and so forth. And I said, why don't you tell us your name? And then Mike said, he's not going to tell you. And I said, no, he won't. He's a coward. And after I called him a coward, he said the name of my dead best friend who died a year prior to the day.
I mean, it knew things about us that Ethan and I didn't know about each other, which is so crazy to me. Like, it said his dead best friend's name like almost a year to the day after it had happened. It said a person's name that I used to be very close to when I was younger that I hadn't spoken to in years. She's still alive, but it was just so specific. And so, like, it knew exactly where to push our buttons.
He said the name of my dead best friend out loud through the spirit box to me, clear as day, in a very smart-ass tone. Like, as if like, oh, yeah, I'm a coward? What do you think about this? Like, I know this about you. Here's that. And it's like, and I heard it in real time. I turned the spirit box off as soon as I heard it. I was like, dude, this is not what we're used to dealing with. This is something very, very dark. I don't know how it knows that about me, but it does, and it just spat that in my face.
The other rooms were, kind of active, like some stuff would happen, some devices would go off, but really when you spent any more than like 20 or 30 minutes in either the blue room or the attic, it became so overwhelming, the feeling of just dread and anxiety, that you have to go outside. Like you can't. I'd be really surprised if anybody could stand there all night, because I was leaving those two rooms every 30 minutes.
Mike and I, we both took at least like 15 breaks in the 4 hours we investigated the place. Just we had to go outside every 15 minutes because it was so intense. Like it was making us feel feelings that we didn't want to feel.
And I didn't let anything build up enough to where something could happen. Like we were going outside every 30 minutes on the dot. Like the longest I think we stayed in the house for one stretch was about 40 to 45 minutes. And then we'd go outside for 15 minutes and then go back in for 30 minutes and then go back outside.
And we would go back inside up to the kids' bedroom upstairs, and Mike would lay down on the bed, the smaller bed. I think the two boys were killed in, and he was laid out, relaxed, feet kicked up. He was like, you know what, man, let's just stay here. We can stay here. I'm like, dude, what? Like 2 minutes ago, you were just saying we need to leave, and now you want to stay here once we come back in the house. That was not sitting right with me. And the whole reason we didn't want to stay there is because of that story of the guy who stabbed himself in the chest in the downstairs bedroom. Who knows what could happen if we both stayed there and tried to go to sleep? One of us could wake up in a frenzy and hurt the other one, or hurt ourselves. We didn't know what could happen. We were truly terrified. I've never been that scared in my entire life. From being in that house scared me more than anything else I've ever experienced in my life. And it's so weird that you say that, because we would, like I said, we would come back inside after talking about, yeah, we're about to leave. We're gonna leave. Let's wrap this up. We're gonna leave now. We go back inside. Mike's like, no, it's all good. Let's just stay here. We can sleep here. It's fine. This is nice. I could sleep here. And I'm like, dude, what?
We had every intention of staying in that house too. We had drove 25 hours to be here. It took us 2 days to get out there. So we're like, we're not leaving. We're gonna stay in this house no matter how bad it gets. I want to see how bad it could really get.
We had never left an investigation early, ever, until that night. And I was dead set on spending the night there. I was dead set on sleeping in the bed and lasting the whole night. But absolutely not. I would not do that. I still wouldn't do it.
By 2:30, we spent the extra money and drove like 20 minutes into town and got a hotel. We couldn't stay there anymore. It got that intense. Like between the feelings, the psychological stuff, the personal experiences, we were just so jumpy and on edge that we couldn't do it anymore. And as we're leaving, we hear something stomping above us. It sounded like boots on hardwood floor, just pacing back and forth while a storm is rolling in and rain is blowing sideways. So it's the ultimate horror movie. Like it's terrifying. But we just couldn't do it. By 2:30, 3 o'clock, we were gone. So what is that? 6 hours?
The effect it can have on people is extremely disturbing. No place scares me more than that place.
I mean, we hadn't experienced anything like that prior. I mean, it would get scary, but nothing ever got too intense to where we couldn't stay or handle it. Like we would push through those feelings and just do it. But that house, my biggest thing with staying there, I was afraid that something was going to happen to one of us while we slept, because of the influence that I could feel it having over me, over Ethan, hearing the story of the guy who stabbed himself, the guy who cut his hand in the kitchen, the murderer. If this thing is able to influence that much, we're so new to this at the time. We don't know how to protect ourselves. We don't know what we're getting into. I was worried about something happening to one of us, or like us doing something to the other person in the middle of the night, and I just didn't feel safe, so we left.
This place haunts me to this day. It's haunting how much it affected me. No place has affected me this much ever, like mentally, spiritually. This place is dark.
It's honestly one of the strangest places still to this day that I've ever been to. It's all, I would say 90% of it is psychological. And a lot of the experiences that people have there aren't going to be collective or group experiences, but rather personal ones. And like you said, it's very hard to document that kind of stuff because it's a personal experience. It's, I might be seeing things that you're not seeing, or vice versa, or hearing, or feeling, or whatever. But that house the haunting sort of tailors itself to who you are as a person. It's not like the same experience every time for every person. It almost like I said before, it almost analyzes you and then figures out how to excuse me, mess with you in a way that is fit for you. If that makes any sense.
Um, I think it has to do with the person in general, how open they are to the whole experience as a whole. And like I said earlier about, what you put out into the house, you receive. So me and him, we were calling out the killer. We were picking at it. We were prying and trying to talk to the killer himself, and we got the most evil spirit in return, or we got the most evil reaction from that spirit, whatever it is.
I mean, I definitely think that the family left there a really long time ago. I don't think they're there anymore, and I think it's something like you said. I too. I don't really like to jump on the whole demon train because it's just very overused, and anything that is negative or dark, and even the slightest bit, somebody wants to label it a demon. But I honestly think that was like one of the only true demonic encounters that I've had. Leading up to this, we had done 5 or 10 investigations, and we've dealt with some dark stuff and some heavier energies, but nothing like the Axe House. Like it was just a whole new level for us. The psychological feelings and the emotions and like the lack of restraint or control that I felt throughout that night has not happened since that night. And I don't know of a human spirit that could influence somebody to that extent, like have the strength to do that. I mean, the guy who stabbed himself in the chest didn't even know he did it. There have been people that have lived in the house before. There was a family, it was like an older man sitting at the table sharpening his knife on a whetstone and stabbed himself in the hand or sliced his hand open. Has no idea why he did it. And that just seems like something really dark beyond our comprehension. I've dealt with angry spirits, frustrated spirits, but never anything that tries to intentionally take over your mental state or your psyche the way that house does. And that goes back on the house sort of catering itself to you. I don't see how it can have the same story, but everybody, while it may be somewhat similar in nature as far as experiences go, there's always some variable to each story that changes, that makes it a personal experience. And I just don't see humans doing that. I really don't.
Like I said, 10 times already, no place has affected me as much as that house. It's terrifying when you really think about it. Like when you really think deep about what that house can do and what it is absolutely terrifying.
It honestly took me a good 6 months to get over that house. A lot of the things that Johnny explains in the tour about like a lingering mental state and the things leading up to after the investigation, I felt like I was starting to isolate myself. I was starting to have like bouts of anger and frustration and things that I would never get upset or frustrated about. I'm usually like a pretty calm, level-headed person. It takes a lot for me to get mad. And I was finding myself getting mad at like the littlest thing for no reason at all.
In the months that followed, this went on for like 3 months. I just felt very on edge, irritable all the time, borderline violent. I would lash out for no reason at the smallest things.
There's a couple of moments of like mental images and things like that are very personal that I would rather not talk about, but I will say that there was a lot of very weird, vivid, dark dreams and a lot of moments of just like mental images that scared me.
I had some health issues also, not serious ones, but minor health issues that I feel came from that place. I don't have any evidence to back that up, but it's just a feeling that I have. In the months that followed, I was just I was not right in the head. I wasn't right at all. And it took me a while to recover from it.
It was scary. I had to like cleanse my house. I prayed a lot. I had people come to my home and help me cleanse. I had to basically force myself to be in a better mood and a better mindset in order to get rid of whatever either followed me back or did whatever it did to me. But yeah, I would say like 6, 7 months to fully get over that house.
It is not for beginners at all. Even when we went, we were fairly new to investigating as far as, actually going to locations and properly investigating them. We weren't prepared for it. I wasn't prepared for it. And we've been doing this for well over a year at that point. This is a very serious place. It could have serious effects on you, your mentality, your spirituality.
If you go from like a cemetery or a battlefield to the Axe House, you were not mentally prepared for what is in that house. I'm not hyping it up, I'm not trying to sell it. That is genuinely one of the scariest places that I've ever been to, or probably ever will go to. It's so psychologically intense and mentally manipulative in a way that I really don't think anybody can prepare for. It's really so hard to get used to something like that because you're so used to spirits haunting a place, but I don't think there are human souls in that house anymore. I really don't. And knowing that, it makes it that much more terrifying to know that you're walking into a house with something that has never, or has potentially never walked the earth in a physical form. You don't want to make that your first trip.
It's a terrible place. And I think that downstairs bedroom is the worst of it.
It'll show you that there are things out there that have the potential to wreak havoc upon your life if you allow it to, and if you're not careful enough. It's very real. It's super rare, but I see now why the Axe House has the notoriety that it does. They're not playing it up. I mean, maybe some shows or some content creators or whatever do some things in that place, but when you look at like the overall majority of what's happened there and the experiences of people across the board, all of like the super intense, really scary personal stuff that's happened to them I think it's genuine because I've experienced it and you have too. It's a wild place.
Yeah, I need to go back. I don't know what it is. I haven't felt this pull towards a location ever until I went to this house. Ever since I left there, I'm like, yeah, I need to go back as soon as possible and figure out what this thing is because it got personal with me. It got very personal with me and I need to face it. I need to face it again.
If you're gonna do the Villisca Ax House, I know I had mentioned before that it's not safe to go if it's like one of your first investigations or one of your first handful of investigations, but I feel like regardless if you do 100 of them or 10 of them, there's really nothing that's going to prepare you for that place. So go in guarded, go in with protection, and do not provoke or push whatever is in there because it will get its grip on you and it will affect you over a very long period of time in a way that you may or may not notice. And you have to be very careful and respectful while you're in that place because it's really the only place that I've been to so far that has had dangerous negative energy. It will mess with you. It doesn't matter how tough you think you are or how many investigations you've done or what you've handled or experienced. That place is truly unlike anything that I've ever heard of or ever experienced for myself. Just be careful.